Hello, and welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings and get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of these stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village. And if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Guilbault Girls Show. I have here with me today Faith and her friend Ellie. Now, Ellie, do you like being called Ellie or Ellianna? Because when I interviewed your family, they were saying Ellianna, and I kept saying Ellie, and I apologize if I should be calling you Ellianna.
No, I go by Ellie.
Okay, good. So Ellie and
That's
Faith.
what everyone calls me.
Good. So Faith and Ellie met a couple years ago, and they became friends, and they do different Zooms together with different groups, which we'll get into that a little bit later. So that way Ellie has a chance to kind of talk about some of the projects that she has coming up. So to begin with, if you can, Ellie, just tell us a little bit. Oh, we'll plug it. Tell us a little bit about your journey of living with a disability and how it affects you.
Okay, well, hi everybody. So I had a birth injury similar to Faith, and I also have cerebral palsy. I am able to walk, but I do have some difficulties with balance. I have a lot of fine motor issues. I have quadriplegia cerebral palsy, which means it affects all four of my limbs. So like my hands shake really bad all the time, and sometimes I have trouble balancing. My hamstrings are very tight. Sometimes I have trouble articulating words. And I also have a hearing loss in my right ear. So that's kind of how it affects me physically. Obviously, there's the social and emotional effects, too, of having a disability. I think everyone with a disability can kind of relate to feeling a little bit like an outsider sometimes, feeling a little bit different from everyone else. I've had to sort of grapple with that over the years and figure out how I felt about myself. And eventually, at 13, I finally just learned to accept it for who I am. I used to feel very resentful towards my disability, but once I accepted it, I learned to find all the positives in it. And I feel like everything happens for a reason. And having a disability is part of my purpose in life. So I feel very strongly passionate about advocating for people with disabilities. And I'm just so excited for the future to work to create a more inclusive and accessible world.
I love it, Ellie. I love it. I love you, and I love your energy and your positivity. And I'm happy to know you, and I can't wait to see, what comes from all of the good work that you're going to be doing. So Faith is going to go ahead and ask the next question. And for those that are watching or listening, Faith has cortical vision impairment. So it takes her a little bit longer to read, and she wanted to partake in the interview. So Faith, go ahead and read this question right here.
Can you tell us a little bit about...
Okay, so that's the one we just did, so it's the second one here.
What are some of your... I don't know that word. Hobbies or things you like to do for fun?
So what are some of your hobbies or things that you like to do for fun?
Right, well, I'm a musician. I play piano, and I dabble in ukulele and voice. I really want to be a music therapist. That's what I want to study, hopefully in university, and pursue as a career. And so I love doing music. I love making music with my family and with my friends. It's just like a huge thing I love to do. And also, I love yoga. It's so good for you. And just working out in general, I love like stretching my body. Even though sometimes it's hard to do things with my body, I love to stretch it and push my limits and show myself how healthy and strong I can be, which is cool. I also love stand-up paddleboarding, which is really fun, and just all kinds of things. I enjoy acting. I enjoy talking to friends, all the basic things. Oratory, I love doing speeches, speech and debate.
I love it. So you said yoga. So when you do get your license, and you can start coming over anytime you want and getting this one downstairs, we're in the midst of kind of finishing up putting a gym together downstairs. So you can start come over and show her some of your yoga moves, and you guys can just hang out and do some yoga together.
I cannot get through my morning without yoga, especially how
I would
stressful
love that.
school is, anxiety, and the kids are. I cannot get through my morning without yoga.
Yeah, but you need to do more yoga because you're so tight. It's very important to do it. So, and sometimes it's more fun when you have friends to do it with.
I considered actually being a music therapist like a long time ago, so it's actually funny that you said that.
Mm-hmm. And you were just so talented. When you, how do I word this? Was it more difficult, or how difficult was it to learn how to play the different instruments because of your fine motor? Because I would think I think that's amazing that you can do it so well. I love to listen to you. I listen to your mom's videos she posts on Sunday. So how difficult?
Yeah, that's kind of the irony of it. It's the irony of it is that I do have a lot of fine motor challenges, but this is going to sound very cheesy and corny, but when I sit at the piano, it literally feels like it all goes away, and it's just me and the music, and I can just breathe it, I just feel like in touch with my inner self. So as cheesy as that sounds, it just comes naturally to me, and I don't really know how to explain it. I guess my neural pathways, when they reconnected, were wired for music, and music has been so helpful on my journey in life. Music really helps me, when I'm in my dark places, music really helps me, and so I think just being able to do that and have that outlet is really good for me. And so I don't really have like a good explanation of how it works. It just kind of comes out.
Well, I think it's awesome. So if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
That's hard. I think it'd be really cool to breathe underwater. That'd be so cool. Because I love swimming. I'm like basically a fish, and I just love being underwater. So if I could breathe underwater and just stand in there all day, I would be a very happy camper.
That's so cool. I love it.
And me too. Like, I would love to be a mermaid and just grow up.
Oh, a mermaid? She used to watch some mermaid show on TV all the time.
Oh, yeah, that'd be so fun.
All right, next question, Faith. You ready?
There's actually, you can do like mermaid swimming classes. I don't know if they have them around here, but that's like a thing.
Get out. That is so cool. I never knew that. What is one of your biggest fears?
One of my biggest fears. I think the future is kind of a fear of like, I think having a disability makes things uncertain of like, like, will I be able to support myself? Will I get married? Will I be able to be a mom one day? Like, will I get through college? All these different things like that way on my mind, but I try to just take it one day at a time, and that helps me. I mean, I don't have to be married right now. I don't have to be in college right now. Right now, I just have to be in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. All right, so the next one. Do you ever feel isolated or feel alone, and how does that make you feel? which you kind of touched a little bit on that in the beginning when you were talking.
Yeah, I definitely feel isolated sometimes. I really struggled with that a lot in the past, even up to now. I still do sometimes feel like very isolated. And it's hard because disability at a young age is something that a lot of people don't really understand. I have faith and I have several other friends with disabilities, but like most of my friends are not disabled, so they don't really understand what it's like. And as much as I love connecting with them over interests and hobbies and whatever, sometimes I just need to talk about my disability, which is why it's so important for me to have the calls with the group that Faith supported, because like we all understand it. We've all been there. We've all had hard times that we've had to go through. So I think it's really important to build that community. But whenever I do feel isolated and alone, it's like really hard. I'm not gonna lie. It can be very anxiety inducing to just feel like nobody understands me. I'm just floating on my own little rock in the middle of nowhere. But I just try and work through it, and like it does get better. And I do feel better sometimes when I'm talking to my friends, that really.
When I was moving to a different school, that's like I felt really isolated and alone because not only moving to a new school is hard enough, but having a disability is hard enough.
Right, because then you feel isolated and it's harder for you to make new friends, because if you're shy, when you go into a new school and then to have a disability, then you feel like you don't, But I have to say, another thing too is, there aren't a lot of people that we really know that have cerebral palsy. So I think when I was so excited when we met you guys, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like Faith, but on a level, not because of just your disability, but because you guys can relate on some form, you know what I mean? Because cerebral palsy affects people differently.
Yes.
Yes. But you still, you get it, you know what I mean? So I was so excited when we did meet you. I wish we would have met you sooner, actually. And then she became with the pandemic. She started having a lot of social anxiety. So and then there's times where if she doesn't know somebody, she's like, oh, I don't know if I want to get on. I'm like, get on it. And then after, she's like, oh, I had so much fun. So I think that I thank you for inviting her to join those Zoom classes. Or not Zoom classes, gatherings. Go ahead.
I'll ask after the interview.
Okay. So what has your disability impacted any of your relationships?
Sometimes it can be harder to make friends at first, especially in early elementary days when you do feel isolated. But I feel like, it doesn't really, like my friendships aren't really too much affected by my disability, because my philosophy is if someone's not going to accept me for who I am, then I'm not going to put my time and effort into them, Mm-hmm. But if people are willing to be nice to me, put in the effort to be my friend, then like it works out really well. And honestly, like in my friend group, I don't really have a group, but I do have friends, and whenever my friends are with me, like they never treat me differently, they never make me feel like disabled or whatever. Mm-hmm. They always, are like, Ellie's just Ellie, and she's here for a good time, and she's here to, I talk about my disability with my friends openly sometimes, and sometimes it never even has to come up once.
I didn't because I was shy back then. But anyway, I did have my good times too.
I think in elementary school you had your core group of friends, and because we lived in such a small community where everybody knew everybody, we were very close knit and everybody was close. They didn't think anything of it. They knew, okay, Faith needs help with this. They just went and did it. You know what I mean? Like nobody questioned or asked or anything. The only thing is when she started getting a little bit older, what was hard was, we were at a barbecue, and, a lot of them were playing tag, or they were running upstairs and then downstairs and outside. And of course she'd try to crawl or go up the stairs, and she couldn't keep up, or some of those things, she couldn't do. And it wasn't anything about the kids, because they were just being kids, they didn't think of that. And we can't say, oh, you can't have fun because she can't, do that with you. But it as she got older, it tended to be more
Right.
that she was always with the adults. She would always be, and even in school, you have the paraprofessional. So, she has a paraprofessional, so she's always, with an adult. And it just seems like she always gravitates towards them, because she doesn't feel as though she, can keep up or fit in it at times, right? So I think it was just difficult when we moved here.
I relate to that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because, first of all, a lot of our family friends that we hang out with are younger, and I do play with the kids sometimes, but I feel more comfortable talking with the adults, because sometimes it's hard to keep up with the kids, or, I feel like having a disability forces you to mature a lot faster than most people your age. So I do like talking to people that are older than me. I have friends that are a year ahead of me or a couple years ahead of me in college that I still keep in touch with. And even my parents' friends are my friends too,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and honestly, friendship doesn't really have an age limit. It doesn't. I have friends that are younger than me too. It doesn't really matter, but I do feel the same way sometimes. Like, we were visiting family, and we have a little cousin who I tried to play with, and then I ended up just sitting and talking with my aunt because I couldn't keep up with my cousin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you, when did you realize that you were different from your classmates? Was there like a time that stood out, something that was profound, or, gradually, like when you were in school or at a certain point in age, that you realized that you were different than the other kids?
I don't really know if there's a specific moment. I think I kind of always knew that I was different, but there were certain reminders of that, like in PE class, when everyone else is doing the full activity and I'm doing a modified activity. It's like, oh yeah, I'm different. Or, just little things like that. Or like whenever, I guess, people start treating you differently, or start asking you like these kind of invasive questions that kids ask.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was little, I wasn't comfortable talking about it, and it kind of felt like the elephant in the room, and I kind of avoided talking about it as much as possible, because I felt like I would be judged, or that it would be too hard for me to talk about. But gradually I've learned to accept it, and realize it's okay to be different,
Mm-hmm. And, some of these questions that I asked too, I'm like, oh no, should I ask them? Should I not ask them? But I feel that it's important to ask questions too, because by you guys being so open and vulnerable, sharing these moments, we could have other listeners that are listening that are younger and are going through the same things that you went through. So they can look up to you guys and be like, oh, wow, she got through it, I can get through it. Or, this is what she did, or what takeaway that, they got from that situation. So I really, want to thank you for sharing these things with us, because I really truly think that it's going to help somebody else out. Let me see.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I was in PE, I think the most activity where I realized, oh, I can't do this, I'm different, is when they would shoot basketball hoops, and I couldn't reach it because I was in a wheelchair. Even though they modified it, it just felt different to me.
Yeah. Is it okay for people to ask you about your disability? And is there like a certain way that, would be more appropriate, if you will, to ask you about your disability?
Well, like I said, I am very open about it. So if someone asks me, in a polite way, I will gladly tell them. But, I have my bad days, and if I really am not feeling it that day, some days I don't want to talk about it as much. That's okay, because I'm a human too, and it's not my job to talk about my disability all the time. Mm-hmm. Some days I don't want to talk about it, but on days when I do, I'm happy to talk about it. But as long as they ask in a polite way, if they say "Oh, Ellie, what happened to you?" or "What's wrong with you?" I won't be as responsive to that as, "Hey, I noticed you have some physical differences," or "Do you mind talking to me about your disability?" Or if they say the word cerebral palsy, then that kind of really opens up the conversation. Mm-hmm. But if they're just "What happened to you?" then I'm kind of off put by that.
Yeah, I remember even in the grocery stores and.
That's what I was supposed to say. In the grocery store, if it was a random stranger that came up to me and be like, "What is wrong with you?" And then I would just be like, "You're a stranger, I'm not telling you." But if you're not a stranger, otherwise, if you know me, I'll come up to, maybe I will come up to you, maybe I won't, but I'll try to open up to you and talk to you about it as best I could.
Well, when people would come up to you when you were younger, she didn't know what to say. And I remember the physical therapist saying, come up with something catchy, because you're going to have, kids that don't know, or, they come up and be like, "What's wrong with you?" If you say cerebral palsy, they're not going to know. And if they're younger kids, I remember her always saying, come up with a catchy phrase. And I don't know if we ever came up with a catchy phrase, but I remember somebody coming up in the grocery store, and Faith had just had her surgery, or lengthenings.
What surgery?
Your muscle lengthenings. So she had casts on both legs. And they're like, "Oh my God, is she okay? How did she break both of her legs?" So they just thought she broke both of her legs. She had 2 casts on, and so she was in a stroller still fitting a stroller type of thing at that time. So then I had to explain, no, or other kids will come up and ask her, the young kids, why can't your daughter walk? Or, so I always try to ask her, what do you feel comfortable when you tell them?
Sometimes they come up to me and say one word, and I'm like, I don't know what to say, and then I'll go back because I feel embarrassed.
Yeah. So, you're always going to have those younger kids, looking at you or asking, but, and I would just tell them, she was born like this, and,
Definitely.
But you always get those, those difficult, questions as the time goes on. What areas of your life and day-to-day activities do you need assistance with?
Sometimes I need help doing my hair before I go to school. If I'm in a rush and it's 6:20 in the morning, I'm still really tired, I'm still half asleep, I'll have my mom do my hair for me because I can't make it look presentable. And sometimes I need help carrying things or putting things away, because it's harder for me to manage a lot of stuff at the same time. So sometimes I need help carrying things or getting things. It just depends. Those are the big ones that I can think of right now.
Mm-hmm. What's your biggest frustration out of any of them, would you say? What frustrates you the most that you have the hardest time doing? Or
I don't really know if there's one thing that frustrates me, but the idea of being independent is something I really want to be able to do, but independent living is hard for people with all kinds of disabilities. So I think every disabled person, their ultimate goal is independence. I want to live in a world where I can be independent, and so it's kind of frustrating sometimes when that's challenged, and when you say to yourself, "Oh, this is hard. Independent living is hard."
I feel
if there's anything I wish I could do or do better, maybe cooking. I have a hard time pouring things, so I wish I didn't spill things.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and Faith can relate to that because we've been working.
I have had a shower with my clothes plenty of times.
a shower with your clothes plenty of times. Yeah, trying to pour stuff and then it gets all over her. But she tries to work on that too. But then with her balance, it's hard for her when she gets it poured. She has a hard time with her balance, and because she has to use the walker to get it from like A to B, you know. So, and where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years from now, I see myself in college. I know college probably won't be easy for me, but I'm going to try and find a way to make it work. I'm going to do my very best to be able to have a relatively normal college experience. I don't know what that's going to look like. And there's a lot of both excitement and anxiety at the same time about college, because everyone says, oh, it's so fun, you're going to love college. But at the same time, it's a lot of work. And then when you add in the layers of me having to manage my disability and do everything for myself when I'm away at college, that'll be hard. But hopefully I'll be studying music therapy, I'll be doing well, and hopefully I'll have a lot of friends at college.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead and tell us about the project that you're working on now, about the disability and the Pride Day.
The highest award a Girl Scout can earn is the Gold Award, which is what I'm working towards, creating a disability pride walk, which is happening on July 30th of this year. So if you're interested in it in Havre County, I will have promotions out, but just mark that date. And if you see any promotions, feel free to sign up. If you're disabled or not, it's a really great way to learn about disabilities and illnesses and just experiences of all kinds of people. I have faith involved in other friends with a range of disabilities, from Williams syndrome to cystic fibrosis to epilepsy and migraines. You know, we have a ton of representation. And I think it's really important to see all of those angles and experiences of disability coming together to show the pride in the community. And so it'll be a really fun event. We'll have music and skit, and we'll have all sorts of fun stuff. We're still working on getting the details together, but it'll be a lot of fun and very educational. So I highly recommend, especially if you have younger kids, to like expose them to disability and stuff.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Because it's your family to choose a word, something that's meaningful to them. You know that words are very powerful. They can inspire us to do great things. They remind us of our importance, or even if it's just a word to simply remind us just to breathe, you know, in the moment in the day. And then I'm going to hand stamp them on a token. So I wanted to see if you would be willing to share what word you chose and why.
So I chose the word resilience. You know, from the time I was born and I was in the NICU, I always had that fighter spirit. I always knew I could get through to the next thing. And so I think resiliency is a huge part of life with disability. Like, every person with a disability has to have some level of resiliency to get through and live in a world that isn't made for you, to create change. And I'm always trying to bounce back from really hard times, from my hearing loss diagnosis to periods of anxiety to anything I go through, from my birth, you know, times when people are treating me differently or times when I experience ableism. I always try to bounce back and be stronger than ever and have those moments where I'm on top of the world and I know I can get through anything because I have that fighter spirit that God gave me and that I'm so strong through what I've been through. So resiliency is really important.
Thank you, Ellie, for being on our show. And if
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll follow back up with you and have you on again too, maybe leading up to your event in July. And then maybe we can do another one touching afterwards. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Guilbault Girls Show with Ellianna Andreen. There will be more episodes to come. We will be hearing from other families and different organizations and sharing different resources throughout. So for now, peace out. And till next time, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show to the masses. If you would like to support the Guilbault Girls on another level, click on the link in the show notes to make a donation in any amount. Add your address and you'll receive a hand-stamped token with the word village on it in appreciation. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls. Till next time.